Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning. Welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. This is sort of like our midsummer series show, Dorothy.
Yes, it is.
In all the years we've been doing the show, we're on our 14th year. You know, we post a banner ad in the pilot each week.
Yes.
And we use that banner ad for the production of our podcasts.
Yeah.
And posting it on social media. And this is the first time, and I thought about this when I was speaking to our guest, and I asked her for some logos. This is the first time we've ever done the banner ad with the picture of our guest.
I didn't realize that.
First time ever.
Huh.
And I'm talking about Brittany Paschal, who is a friend. She is a top real estate broker in Moore County. She owns Front Runner Realty. Brittany has been on the show in the past with her husband, Ryan, who is the owner-builder of Pineland homes. And she is as experienced and as classy and straightforward as any broker that I've known in Moore County. I've always enjoyed working with her or talking shop. And she has the advantage of she's a Moore County native, even though she left and came back like so many people have done.
Yep.
But her perspective on Moore County lends itself to a world of experience and a perspective that few other people can have, because when you think about it, when people reach out to real estate brokers, they hire us because of our perspective and our experience. And I look at you and I say, how can you have so much experience because you're so young compared to me? But you were born and raised here?
I was, yep. So born at Moore Regional and lived here until about kindergarten age. And my dad was in the car business, so we moved around the southeast with that for a while, but came back and just have been here ever since. So even when I went to school, I went away to NC State. I was still living here and driving back and forth. Had a really cute little Prius that was good on gas.
We have a lot of topics to discuss today with you because you're not just coming in here today as a real estate broker, but it's your passion. Since you were on the show, you've had a second child, and Wendy is now 4.
She's going to be 4 in November.
And Hinton is 6?
Yep.
Your first, okay. You live in horse country.
We do.
How long have you been in the real estate business in Moore County?
Going on 10 years.
When did you start Front Runner Realty?
So Front Runner is owned by myself and my parents, Kim and Frank Strange, and they started Front Runner, I think it was probably early 2000s. So shortly after we moved back here, they started it, and then I kind of got into real estate in a roundabout way. My path was vet school, which is what I wanted to do. That didn't work out. And so Mom said, get your real estate license, just try it out. And I'm like, oh gosh, real estate's so boring. I don't want to do that. But here I am today. So it all worked out how it was supposed to in the end.
From your podcast, which we're going to talk about during the show, you're a 3rd-generation realtor in your family, huh?
I am.
Your grandparents?
My grandmother lives in Longleaf, and she was a super mega star realtor in Florida in the Amelia Island area.
Oh, boy.
So she has a wealth of experience in that, and just so cool.
She got, Amelia Island took off like a rocket.
Right.
Oh, that was one of the most desirable places to be in the real estate business
at the
beginning.
There. She was killing it.
Oh, my goodness. You've had a great success in our business here, and your perspective about Moore County, we've had shows in the past where we've talked about growth, and your husband is a very good builder, by the way.
Thank you.
And he does not he's sort of like the antithesis of the track builders. And I'm very comfortable to say that because when he builds a home, he puts his heart and soul into it. And in many ways, he's probably competing for the same audience as some of the subdivisions that have been going up. I've been here 23 years, and the big picture comment that I would make, and I'd love your take on it, is the landscape of Moore County is changing and not always for the better.
I think you're right. It's definitely changing. I think everyone kind of has an interpretation of what they feel is better. It is certainly different than the world we grew up in here, and certainly the world my husband, who's 5.5 years older than me and never left Moore County except to go to UNC when he was in school there. And so, yeah, we were talking to somebody, I can't remember who it was, a couple days ago about where Walmart, it was our land clearing guy. So we're talking to our land clearing guy he was talking about a house, this cool old house that was where Walmart is. And the property was like this farm where Walmart was.
Oh my.
And it had all this money like stashed in the walls from like the Great Depression era. They stashed money in the walls. And so his friend or brother or somebody bought the house and tore it down and found all this old money in the wall. So, thinking about, okay, where Walmart was once a farm. And then now, look what it is.
Concrete jungle.
Concrete, roads, traffic, lights. Yes, it is changing. However, it's just an evolution that has to happen, right? Growth has to happen or an area dies. Look at, kind of the rebirth I would show you is like Rockingham. Rockingham kind of was a huge boom town and railroad town and beautiful old homes. And then it really, really became very desolate and very depressed as an area. And then kind of lately it's kind of having a little resurgence.
Yes,
So, everything's a cycle. But Moore County, Pinehurst, Southern Pines is no secret. Word has gotten out.
Yeah.
So we just have to have smart growth.
The the growth in Rockingham, do you think a lot of it is due to the higher prices in southern Moore County?
I do. I think that Rockingham and Richmond County and Scotland County are really kind of areas where you're going to see some growth happen. I don't know if it's going to be a quick process. I would say probably 10 years out from really a significant change there.
Right.
But I just had a listing in Scotland County, this beautiful Victorian home that was on almost 10 acres, completely redone, and it's sold in the low fives.
Crazy.
Right? So I told people when they were looking at it, I had people from all over the country calling me about this property. It was really sensational, the exposure this home got. And I had people calling me from all over the place. And they're like, what's the catch? I don't understand it. And I'm like, well, location. You've heard that before, right? So if it was in Moore County, if I could pick up that place and put it in Moore County, it would have been $1.5 million property.
Right.
So it's just where you are. And so working with the growth is something that our town leaders, I hope, do in a smart way. I think that it can be achieved, but you got to have growth or it dies.
Yeah. I was entertaining some people in the real estate industry from the Charlotte area a couple of weeks ago, and we were driving around, and I was sort of giving them the nickel tour, and they would point to a house, and I would tell them what it sold for or what it's on the market for. They could not get over how inexpensive the prices occurred to them, while we here on the ground have seen this crazy increase in price and value. To the outside world, we're still perceived as a very good value.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Very good value.
Right?
If you're looking at New Jersey, New York, California, Chicago area, like we're still
Right.
very good value.
So growing up here as a kid, or when you came back, do you remember Morganton Road?
Mm-hmm.
And it was nothing but a wooded...
little corridor.
Woods on everywhere you could look. Now you drive by
Two-lane.
it, once the Target goes in, it's going to look like Secaucus, New Jersey. I mean,
I am happy that it's kind of pushed back a bit. Like,
Yeah.
I am happy that it's kind of back in there, tucked down in that little gully. I think that was really good. It is still a very pretty road to go down when you're kind of at like Lowe's Food Char Bar, kind of looking down towards the Belk Shopping Center. Like, it's still very pretty and scenic.
Yep.
And I think that was a super smart decision.
Yep.
Moving it back, having that longer entrance.
Before we get off real estate, because there are a couple of other things we want to talk about with you, but while we're still on real estate, in this higher interest rate environment, in this low inventory environment, how has your presentation changed in working either with sellers or with buyers?
Well, it kind of changes based on the house that my clients are looking at. If I'm working with a buyer on a house and there's a price point of homes that I think really has been hit hard by the interest rate increase. I think that buyer in that 300 to 500 range
exactly what I
has
think.
Been very
clobbered.
Exactly. That's a great word.
Yep.
And because where that was kind of our bread and butter price point here for a lot of folks.
Right.
A lot of the military moving in are in that price point. And working with them in that price range has been really difficult because we're still at super crazy low inventory. It's like, even though the rush of buyers and the rush of demand has kind of, the faucet's been turned down a little on that, we still are at very limited inventory. I would say in the higher price ranges, it's not been impacted as much, but that definitely that kind of sweet spot of what we've always had a lot of here, that 3 to 550 range, has been really impacted. And so I would say to buyers, you have to work with what you have at this moment in time. You have a limited opportunity to buy this house because as soon as the rates go down, I say everybody's going to be moving. And we're also going to be hitting that fall PCS season. I think I don't know this for sure. Of course, nobody does. And mortgage people would know it better than I do probably. But I think we are going to have a rate shift, pretty significant one, I would say in early 24, just kind of what I'm seeing and looking at out there in the upcoming election cycle. I think everybody's going to kind of turn the rates down. Economy, let's let everything look really super. And I think I had an appraiser call me a couple weeks ago, and he's like, what are you seeing right now? I'm pretty slow. And I said, you better buckle your seatbelt because everybody who's buying right now is going to be wanting to refi next year.
That's right.
You're going to have refis out the wazoo plus a ton of new appraisals, new purchase appraisals. So he was like, okay, good.
I agree with you. It seems like the iconic properties, the higher end properties that don't have a lot of competition, it's still a seller's market. Big time. Still multiple
Farms,
offers.
Beautiful golf properties, because those are in demand no matter what the market's doing.
Right. And then the 3 to 500 range, I agree with you, by the way, exactly. Those are the numbers I use. I try to find out how many years does the buyer plan to be here? Is it a forever home or is it just a 3 or 4 year? And the values are like a bird in flight. They change daily, and it's going to continue that way. But you have more than 10 years of experience because it's been in your family. You've listened to the lingo. Even though you were going to be a vet, you were a biology major, which I didn't know.
Yeah. A lot of science went into this brain that's being unused.
Well, what you offer is experience, a perspective, boots on the ground, not just today, but from when Southern Moore County was what we remember it as. And there are still great pockets. You had a beautiful home in Weymouth on the market that needed some attention. You just got it sold, and I drove by there with some clients of mine to look at it, and shortly thereafter, I think you put it under contract. But those homes don't have a lot of competition.
No.
Right? And the demand is strong.
Always buy, my advice is always buy the best house you can.
In the best neighborhood.
In the best neighborhood. And that's like not original advice, right? Like everybody knows that.
Right.
But if you buy the location, you can pretty much make the house whatever. And I've learned that through working with Ryan and us doing so many remodels and historic remodels over the years. You have to be willing to take a risk, and you have to get comfortable with that. And a lot of home buyers are not comfortable with the risk. It is just not going to be a risk-free thing. It cannot be. You have to look at your house as an investment, but you have to be willing to jump in and do it, or somebody else is going to get that deal.
Right. And then some of the buyers in that 300 to 500 range, I feel badly for them because here they are paying top dollar or asking price for a home, but they're not getting many concessions because there's such a lineup. There are more buyers than there are homes for sale. And so their expectation is, well, we should get this and get that. And unfortunately, it hasn't worked that way. So I'm hoping the inventory increases and interest rates come down.
Yeah, I would also say that you need to get creative. If you're in that price point, you can't just sit in a corner and say, woe is me, the house that I want, I can't afford.
Right.
You've got to get creative. You got to go out and buy that 1960s ranch that grandma still has their shag carpet in and do a little bit of sweat equity, and you're going to be better off in the end by doing that. A lot of the problem is those homes aren't great candidates for VA financing.
Right.
So working to get a conventional loan
Right.
to purchase those kind of houses that nobody's really excited about, you're going to end up so much better in the long run. And so use some creativity, think a little outside the box, and you can still get a great house.
Yeah, that's great advice. Brittany Paschal is our guest for the hour. We're going to come back and talk to her about a couple of things that she's doing a little bit outside the box. But if you look at all the pieces of the show and put them all together, you'll say, wow, this is a person who is completely enrolled in what she does and in her community. And that's kind of consistent with the way we do the show. So that's why your picture's on the banner ad.
Thank you. Honored.
This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County. Brittany Paschal is our guest. We know her from Front Runner Realty. She has had a very distinguished career in real estate, and she's very well known and respected in the community. With her family and her coming back and setting up roots, she's also evolved outside of her business, outside of herself, and she's affiliated herself with an organization that obviously is near and dear to your heart that you want to speak about. And I've seen a couple of mentions on social media about it. So when I reached out to you, it was like the first thing you said to me, oh, I really want to talk about this organization. And I looked at it. It's outside of ourselves, it's very impressive.
It is.
Tell me what we're talking about.
Okay, so first I want to tell you what it is and tell you how I came to know about it. So Aerial Recovery is an organization. They are humanitarian special operators. And what they do is they have a 3-part program, basically a 3-armed program. Their first arm is the Heal the Heroes mission, which is to transform the lives of veterans who have served and have trauma associated with that service. So they offer a full immersive healing program where people who have served can tune into who they really are, what their bigger purpose is in life, how to engage their passions, how to find what those are, and how to engage those with a career and a life outside of the military after they've served. And it does it in a super unique way because they then let them know how all of their years of service and all of the millions and millions of dollars that the U.S. government has poured into these people for this highly specialized training, they then give them the opportunity to redeploy and be humanitarian special operators across the world, doing natural and man-made disaster response and responding to human trafficking, which is getting a lot of attention right now, thank goodness, because of the Sound of Freedom movie. I don't know if a lot of people have seen it. I hope they have, because the message is so powerful. I went and saw it with Ryan this week, and it's such an incredible movie. Well, the operations that you see in that movie are what these people are deploying and doing. And they just rescued minors and women out of Colombia. And I mean, that's right where the movie's centered around there. So the program is just an all-encompassing, all transformative opportunity. And so I have made it my goal to send 4 veterans from Moore County serving at Fort Liberty through the program in a year. And then next year I want to double it and double it and double it. And so I can just be a service to my community, and I recognize what a need that it is in the lives of these people who've given their lives in service. I recognize that I have the opportunity to fund through my network, through my connections, through my area that we live in. I can fund people going through this program that's going to change their lives and the lives of their family. And what that's going to do is then lift up everything else. A rising tide lifts all boats. And so if we can make some changes to help bring about a little bit of change in somebody's lives, it's going to just spread.
In your real estate career, have you had any personal experiences that have motivated you to morph into this direction?
Yes. So over the years, it's kind of just in our background of our minds all the time. Somebody's in the military, somebody's moving here from out of town, they're doing a PCS relocation.
Right.
They've lost a spouse. They have gone through a divorce. All of these things, when I started kind of looking at it from a different perspective, have prepared me to help people in my community. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit, if I can, about how this all evolved for me.
Yep.
So about 1.5 years ago, my husband, Ryan, was telling me, hey, you need to listen to this person. You need to follow her on Instagram. Her name's Brittany Turner. She's an amazing entrepreneur. She's the most driven person I've ever seen. And she and her husband, Jeremy Locke, who's a retired 5th Group Green Beret, have formed Aerial Recovery. So I didn't know about Aerial Recovery when I first found out about Brittany. I just said, oh, she's cool. She's doing all the things I want to do with real estate development and engaging with people to help them. And so I was driving to a showing one day, and I listened to podcasts all the time. And this podcast comes up on my Apple. It says suggested for you. I click on it and I listen to it, and I'm hearing what she's saying, and she's talking about this island that she has and the transformative mission of the island, which is to transform the lives of people. And she's talking about these summits that she has, these personal growth and entrepreneurial summits that she has at the island. And I just looked at the website quickly, and I was like, gosh, I would love to do that. It just sounds so incredible. So I go on the website, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have one next week. So I call the number on the website. I'm like, hey, I know you probably don't have any space available. Can I go? Is there room for me? And she goes, we have one spot.
Really?
And so I was like, okay, pencil me in. I don't know if I can even get a flight because it's in the British Virgin Islands. And the tie back to that is so crazy because the British Virgin Islands are a huge soft spot for me and Ryan. We love it. That's our favorite place on earth to go to. We've been 7 or 8 times sailing down there, and we try to go every year. So when I have a lot of level of comfort and familiarity with going down there, and I'm like, gosh, the flights are going to be, I don't know if I can even get a flight this late in the game. So I tell them, hold my spot, pencil me in. I'm going to go see if I can get a flight. So I get a flight, one seat. Okay. Serendipitous. And so I go. I kind of call Ryan. I'm like, hey, I found out this thing. I'm going to go next week. I really don't know why, but I feel like I need to go. And he's like, go. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do it. And
yeah.
Thank goodness he's such a wonderful, supportive person.
Yeah.
So I go, and I'm on the way to show a house. And that house was owned by a military person who had passed away. And it was as if it looked like he had just stepped out to go to the grocery store. And at the time, it was sad, but I didn't really think of how it all fit into the big picture. We don't know until we get along a road sometimes. So I go to this retreat. It's wonderful. I'm learning so much. One day at breakfast, I'm sitting down. I'm talking to Brittany and Jeremy. And Jeremy says, "Oh, you live in Southern Pines. I used to be stationed at Fort Bragg." And
I know where this is going.
yeah. And so I am like, yeah. And I can't tell you what it was, but it was like one of those lightning bolt moments where it was like, boom, this is why you're here. This is why you came across to this place, to go here.
Yeah.
And you need to take, I mean, I'm a Christian, and I believe that God was telling me, like, this is why you're here. This is what your mission is.
Right.
And you can use your experience, even though I'm not from a military background, I can use my experience to help change my community.
Right.
And so they're telling me about the Heal the Heroes program, and I'm just seeing all the ways that this works and plugs into my community.
Yeah.
And it was not until that moment that I realized that that podcast that was populated for me to listen to was 6 months older than the date that I was listening to it. And if you watch podcasts a lot, you know that that's not normal, right?
Right. That's right.
That's not normal.
That's correct.
So it was an old episode that populated that I'm supposed to listen to it, and I'm on the way to show a home of a veteran who had passed away that same day. And it wasn't until that moment that I had realized the connection there. And so immediately, when I kind of made that all connection, I was just kind of lit up and on fire to do this, because I see the change that it can make in lives, and I can see the way it can change everything about a community if people are plugged into this.
Right.
And it can just be amazing.
Did you, with Jeremy, did you talk enough to figure out if you had any common people that you knew in common?
No, he was living in Fayetteville, and
Okay.
and when he was stationed here, it was kind of before my time in real estate. I know that there's so many connections, and there probably are people that we knew, but I had Jeremy over to the house. We had a get together of about 50 people at my house in June, and Jeremy came down and gave a talk and just did a presentation, and we had a great meal. And there were some people who attended, local people who attended, who were in the military community, who were making connections, and they were stationed at the same time. So everything is woven together. And just figuring, like, the one thing I would say is you have to have a purpose, and that's what I've really learned through all this. But sometimes what you're doing in life can kind of feel like it doesn't really tie in, but there's ways to tie your gifts and your skills into so many different things,
Right.
that you may not even realize it at the time. But that's one thing that aerial recovery does, is they say, you have all these amazing skills and all these things that you've learned over the years. We can plug you into these crisis situations and these disaster situations, these trafficking operations, because you are the most equipped in the world to do this. And they have an amazing program that they take the veterans through, which starts on the island that I went to, a full immersive, holistic healing retreat. Getting your mind right. There's professionals there if you've been struggling with substance abuse. There's people there coaching on relationships and rebuilding after relationships fall apart. Diet, your whole thing comes into play. And from there, it goes into a mentorship program where you're plugged into a community of people who have been going through the same things you have been through, helping you navigate this new season of your life, helping you not fall back into your old ways, and accountability. And then you go into a business and entrepreneurial coaching program that is specialized to help these veterans find their way, find their niche in the next phase of life. And then through that, they can elect to go through additional trainings to deploy, to use their skills all over the globe. And they've been able to respond to missions all over the globe.
You know, in an indirect way, we're making an indictment a little bit against the VA and what they can provide and what they can't provide to the veterans who return home. It's not enough. So
it's not enough. And my eyes have been really, really opened to the need of veterans, not only after they're retired, but during their course of, working and being active duty. I had somebody who's a friend tell me, my husband couldn't go out and get therapy and counseling, because it is a death sentence to their career, basically. You know, you're going to get passed over for certain opportunities, and if that's on your history, then it can be a detriment. And what a sad place to be in, that you need help so badly and you have to suppress it because you cannot proceed with your career the way you want to if you reach out and get help. So unfortunately, a lot of the people that come through the Heal the Heroes programs, it's very far into a progressive of trauma, and their lives have been kind of torn apart in a lot of cases. But hopefully there's enough people who can go in that have not been down such a bad path for so long, and they can kind of rebuild from there. But I mean, lives are being saved. People who were suicidal have been saved. And just one quick stat is over 6,000 veterans commit suicide every year. And that was staggering to me. And that equates to 1 every 84 minutes. And the most people who succumb to suicide and mental health crises are the special operators. And those are the people that are best equipped to go out into the world and be, as Brittany likes to say, Brittany Turner, a force for good. Be a force for good in the world.
Right.
And so just a change of the mindset, a change of a mission is really what it is.
There is you've got a personal fundraising page, which we will post on the podcast synopsis. It's too long to announce. Oh my God, there's so many forward slashes. But you can also go to the website aerialrecovery.org to read a little bit about the organization, and it's a pretty intuitive site. It's very easy to, in 5 minutes, get a really good feel for all the things that they cover, that they do, or that they aspire to. And people can go on to, I guess, your Facebook page?
Yeah, they can reach out to me directly, and the Give Lively site is my personal fundraising goal. So if you would like to contribute to sending one of our local Special Forces veterans through this program, that's the link to do it on, and it will go directly to funding. And I can, if you know of somebody who would be an excellent candidate for this program, you can nominate them, and I would be happy to talk to them.
Can we give your email or your
phone, email? All of it can be given.
So you can reach Brittany at 910-315-9998, or her email, brittany@frontrunnerrealty.com. We'll also post that in the synopsis for you. And we'll come back in the third set. We have more to talk about. Maybe we need about 3 additional sets for her, Dorothy.
I got the gift of gab.
You're great. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County with Brittany Paschal. Dorothy, do you remember a couple of weeks ago we had Brandon Langford on?
Yes.
I knew Brandon because of his affiliation and involvement with the Encore Center.
Mm-hmm.
He called me, and he came on because he was starting a podcast.
Yeah.
And it was specifically tailored to returning veterans with PTSD.
Yes.
And he does a weekly podcast now. And it occurred to me that podcasts are they're growing, even in this area, where 5-6 years ago we didn't see them.
Oh, they're everywhere now.
Right. And they're specialized, and they're intense, and it's a great way to get information, especially when you consider what's on television.
Yes.
or on,
what's not worth watching on television?
What's on the internet.
Yeah.
And Brittany, you started a podcast.
I did.
When did you start it? And why did you start it?
Last week.
Called Out of the Gate.
I started it last week. It's called Out of the Gate, and it's on Spotify.
Motivation for doing it?
I felt like it could be, so I've started doing more with Instagram and getting my social media stuff better, improving that. And so I started seeing the value in a podcast. I mentioned on the last segment that I listen to podcasts all the time. So I think it was my familiarity with podcasts got improved and I felt more comfortable with them. And I just thought, it could be a great way for me to tell more about what I want to talk about, more so than I can on my little Instagram reel for 3 to 4 minutes. And they're kind of short still. I want to keep them under 15 minutes if I can, just because most people are so busy. You don't have an hour or so to designate to listening to something. So keeping them short and hopefully getting some kind of good message out of it. They're not just going to be real estate. My first one was a intro kind of about me and how I got my start in the business. And then my second one, which just came out this week, is my takeaways in life and business this far. And so in that, I just give 4 kind of insights that might help somebody. You can take it forward in your life. I still have a lot to learn and do and accomplish, obviously, but this is just kind of the stuff that I keep in mind as I'm going about my day and things that have helped me. And my next one next week is going to be real estate related, on buying your first house and how to set up that process of getting yourself in a place of situating yourself for success and making sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you even start. Right.
So there's a fine line between marketing and just providing the public with good information. And it seems to me like that's what you're doing. So people will listen to a podcast if there's something they can learn from it. It doesn't mean that you're hitting people over the head. You're just giving them good information, and what they do with it is up to them. It's the premise we've used for the show over 14 years, and nobody really crosses a line. Everybody respects it. Do you remember the movie with Kevin Spacey and Joel Haley Osment called Pay It Forward?
No.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm not a good movie person. I don't know. I'm the worst for trivia.
So you have to go to Netflix or somewhere, and you have to watch the movie Pay It Forward.
Okay, I will.
And it's a concept that evolved people use in their lives to help others. It's because you want to share, you want to pay it forward, you want to give back. All of the elements of whether you were speaking about real estate in the first set, aerial recovery in the second set, or the motivation for doing the podcast in the third set, the underlying theme is that it's your way of paying it forward at an age where most people are still trying to, chisel their elbows, make a name for themselves in their profession, and hyper-focus on that. You're spread much more widely and much more unselfishly.
Well, thank you.
That's what I get.
It's not helping anybody to be selfish. And the one thing is, you can have some little nugget that you can get from a million different things. It doesn't matter if you're listening to someone talk about motivation or you're listening to somebody talk about, I don't know, gardening or something, just a different perspective. It's not the same way everybody's going to do something or talk, or you're listening and you're like, gosh, that person's got a great voice and they're just a good speaker. I don't care if they're talking about basket weaving. It could be interesting if somebody has a good voice and they're engaging and how can I talk more like that person? There's so much you can learn just from everything. Right. I am a voracious reader. I read all the time, and I don't really read fiction books. I read books that are going to help me grow mentally, business stuff. I mean, it's just, there's so much to learn out there. And I would say when you start feeling you're in a rut, you need to get creative and you need to learn something. I don't really care what it is, just learn something. And having that mind being expanded. And so I hope with the podcast, it can lead to somebody learning more a little bit about real estate, learning more a little bit about themselves. I want to have some people on there. We were just talking about how do I do it? I just record it on my phone. I'm just sitting on my couch recording it right now. So I've got to get myself a little more savvy on my process so I can have some guests. But I do want to bring people on and just kind of talk about everything.
Yeah, you're way ahead of the game. You're an old soul. I remember when I turned 50, I said, oh my gosh, I'm 50. But the truth of the matter is when I look back, the most productive years of my life started after I was 50.
Mm-hmm. And that's common. Most people don't really start until you're like 40 to 50.
Yeah. So we're running out of time, but if people want to, how can they access your podcast?
So I have a page on Spotify. If you go to Spotify and you search Out of the Gate and my name, it should come up.
Okay.
They can also find me on social media, and it's Brittany Paschal Real Estate.
Yep.
And so I'm on there, and also on Facebook. You can call me. We gave my number earlier. You can text me. Honestly, don't call me. Just text me right now because that's easier sometimes.
Right.
Email me. My website is frontrunnerrealty.com.
Okay.
You can find all my contact information there. So that's it.
We're good. It's a pleasure to have you on. I wish a lot of guests luck. I don't need to wish you luck.
Thank you.
I'd just say it's good to see you, and I admire you. I have a lot of respect for you and what you're doing. And people will get that. They'll be able to very quickly read in between the lines because you're very genuine. That's how you come across.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Thanks, Brittany. This is All Things Moore County. Everybody have a great week. Thank you.